Have you ever wondered what happened on the day that changed a small group of frightened believers into bold messengers who would transform the world? What if a moment of divine power could suddenly fill ordinary people with courage, wisdom, and the ability to speak to nations? And what if that moment was the beginning of a movement that still impacts millions today? After Jesus ascended into heaven, his followers returned to Jerusalem, carrying both hope and uncertainty. Jesus had promised them that they would soon receive power from the Holy Spirit. He told them to wait in the city until that promise was fulfilled. So they waited. Days passed as the believers gathered together in prayer. About 120 followers of Jesus stayed united in expectation. Among them were the apostles, the women who had followed Jesus faithfully, and Mary, the mother of Jesus. They were not yet fully sure what would happen, but they trusted the promise their Lord had given them. Then the day of Pentecost arrived. Pentecost was already an important Jewish festival, celebrated 50 days after Passover. Jews from many nations traveled to Jerusalem to celebrate this feast, which was connected to thanksgiving for the harvest and remembrance of God's law. The city was filled with people from different regions, languages, and cultures. None of them knew that this particular Pentecost would become one of the most powerful moments in spiritual history. The believers were gathered together in one place when something extraordinary suddenly happened. Without warning, a sound came from heaven. It was like the roaring of a violent wind filling the entire house where they were sitting. This was not a normal wind that rattled windows or stirred dust through the streets. It was a heavenly sound, powerful and overwhelming, announcing that something supernatural was taking place. The disciples looked around in amazement. Then something even more astonishing appeared. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire separating and coming to rest on each of them. These were not flames that burned or caused pain. Instead, they symbolized the presence and power of God descending upon his people. In that moment, every person in the room was filled with the Holy Spirit. Something changed instantly within them. The same disciples who had once hidden in fear after the crucifixion of Jesus suddenly experienced a new boldness and clarity. The Spirit of God filled their hearts, empowering them to speak in languages they had never learned. As they began speaking, they praised God and proclaimed his wonders in different tongues. Outside the house, the loud sound like rushing wind had already drawn attention. People throughout the city began gathering to see what was happening. Soon a crowd formed, filled with visitors from many parts of the world. Among them were Jews and converts from regions such as Parthia, Media, Elam, Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, Libya near Cyrene, and even visitors from Rome. There were also people from Crete and Arabia. These travelers spoke different languages and came from diverse cultures. Yet as they listened to the disciples speaking, something incredible stunned them. Each person heard the message in their own native language. Imagine the confusion and amazement of the crowd. They looked at one another in disbelief. "How is this possible?" they asked. "Aren't all these people speaking Galileans?" The region of Galilee was known for its simple fishermen and laborers, not for scholars trained in foreign languages. Yet here they were, speaking clearly in the languages of distant nations. The crowd heard them declaring the mighty works of God. Some stood amazed, trying to understand what was happening. Others whispered questions, wondering about the meaning of this strange event. But not everyone responded with curiosity or faith. Some people in the crowd mocked the disciples and accused them of being drunk. To them, the extraordinary behavior of the believers seemed foolish or ridiculous. Instead of recognizing the work of God, they dismissed it as nonsense. This reaction revealed something that often appears throughout history. When God does something powerful or unexpected, people respond in different ways. Some are open and curious, seeking truth. Others are skeptical or dismissive. Yet, the events of that day could not be ignored. The coming of the Holy Spirit was not just a dramatic moment, it was the fulfillment of a promise spoken long before. Centuries earlier, the prophet Joel had spoken about a day when God would pour out his Spirit on all people. Sons and daughters would prophesy, young men would see visions, and old men would dream dreams. Now that prophecy was beginning to unfold. The fire-like tongues represented the presence of God, similar to the fire that appeared when God revealed himself in earlier moments of biblical history. The rushing wind symbolized the breath of God bringing life and power. In the original languages of the Bible, the word for spirit is closely connected to breath and wind. Just as wind is invisible yet powerful, the Spirit of God moves in ways that cannot always be seen but can certainly be felt. On that day of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit did not simply visit the believers temporarily. He came to dwell within them, empowering them to carry out the mission Jesus had given them. This marked the birth of the early church. Before Pentecost, the followers of Jesus were waiting, uncertain about how they would spread his message across the world. After Pentecost, everything changed. They were no longer timid or hesitant. They became bold witnesses. The supernatural ability to speak different languages served an important purpose. Jerusalem was filled with international visitors during the festival. People from many nations were present, and they could hear the message of God in their own languages. This meant the good news about Jesus could spread quickly beyond the city. Those who heard the message could carry it back to their own regions and communities. What started as a small gathering of believers would soon become a global movement. Pentecost also demonstrated that the message of Jesus was not limited to one nation or culture. The presence of multiple languages symbolized that the gospel was meant for all people everywhere. God was breaking barriers. Language barriers, cultural barriers, national barriers. The Holy Spirit empowered ordinary people to communicate a message that would reach every corner of the earth. This moment also revealed that God often chooses unexpected instruments to accomplish his plans. The disciples were not famous scholars or powerful leaders. Many of them were fishermen and ordinary workers. Yet God filled them with his Spirit and gave them a mission greater than anything they had imagined. Their strength did not come from their own abilities. It came from God. The transformation was remarkable. Just weeks earlier, Peter had denied knowing Jesus out of fear. Now he would soon stand before thousands of people in Jerusalem and boldly proclaim the truth about Christ. The same disciples who once hid behind locked doors would soon face persecution, imprisonment, and hardship without abandoning their faith. Pentecost was the turning point. It showed that when God's Spirit fills a person, fear can be replaced with courage, confusion with clarity, and weakness with strength. Even today, many believers see Pentecost as a reminder that the power of God is not limited to the past. The Holy Spirit continues to guide, comfort, and empower those who seek him. The events described in Acts chapter 2 are not simply historical details. They represent the beginning of a new chapter in God's relationship with humanity. Through the Holy Spirit, God's presence would now dwell within believers, guiding them in truth and helping them live out the teachings of Jesus. The disciples could never have predicted how far their mission would spread. From Jerusalem, the message would travel through Judea and Samaria, across the Roman Empire, and eventually to distant continents. Generations later, millions of people around the world would still read about the moment when the Holy Spirit came with power. Pentecost reminds us that God can take ordinary people and accomplish extraordinary things through them. It reminds us that divine power often appears when people come together in prayer, unity, and expectation. And it reminds us that the message of hope, forgiveness, and new life through Jesus was always meant to reach every language and every nation. What began as the sound of a rushing wind in a small room became the spark that ignited a worldwide faith. The disciples stepped into their mission with boldness because they knew they were no longer alone. The Spirit of God was with them, and that made all the difference. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed learning about the powerful moment when the Holy Spirit came at Pentecost, please take a moment to like this video, follow the Holy Path Insights channel, and share this message with others who may be encouraged by this story. Your support helps more people discover the truth and inspiration found